Candidates for Rhode Island Secretary of State will now be introduced. May the first here please welcome.
I am Rhode, and it is my honor to introduce Rhode, who is running for the Secretary of State. Mr. Rhode is a member of the House Committee on Finance and the House Committee on Innovation, Internet, and Technology. In addition to his duties as a legislative representative, Amor is the athletic director of the East Providence High School Department. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce our next Secretary of State, Mr. Rhode.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So I just came from East Providence High School, where I taught a civics class this morning. For 26 years, I taught U.S. history and civics at East Providence High School, and now I'm the athletic administrator. And I wish I could say that East Providence has had a good record against North Kingston in the years that I've been the athletic director, but that is not the case. It's a tremendous athletic program here, and a beautiful school. I think I might be in a school that's as beautiful now since we built the new school. As Hunter said, I've served in the General Assembly for 10 years. I've been the chairman of the Finance Committee, Subcommittee on Education. I've been the chairman of the Small Business Committee. I'm a deputy majority leader, and I'm the vice chair of the Education Committee. During that period of time, I've been engaged in legislation that deals with everything from making it easier to start, continue a business in Rhode Island, to education reform legislation, to voting legislation. I'm the first co-sponsor of the Let Rhode Island Vote Act, which expanded voting access. I am the sponsor of the Civic Literacy Act, which requires every high school student in Rhode Island to take at least one semester of civics and prove proficiency through a student-based project. These are the things I've been working on during my time in the General Assembly, but I really want to stress my belief in civic education and the idea that we need to communicate to not only young people, high school students, but across the board, how our system works, that we do have a functioning democracy, and that we need to make sure that every time there is misinformation about how our electoral system works, we push back with facts. So I'm pleased to be here today. I appreciate the invite, and I look forward to a discussion. Thank you.
My honor to introduce Pat Codalesa, who is running for Secretary of State. Mr. Codalesa is our Republican candidate for this year's election. He wants to work to lower fees associated with starting a business and values the protection of our elections. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce our next Secretary of State, Mr. Codalesa.
Thank you, North Kingstown High School students, for being here today. I'm very honored to be here to speak in front of you today. I'm a businessman. I own commercial real estate. Running for Secretary of State, I think that will bring a great, tremendous amount of experience to help you. I serve you, students. I am a unifier. I want to help Rhode Islanders enhance their lives by using my experience of life. I'm in security right now. That kind of reflects our election laws. I want to be fair and equitable. But I also want to make sure that the integrity of our elections are pristine for everybody here, that when you have faith in our system of democracy, you are the youth, you are coming up. We're passing the torch to you to carry on our traditions of Rhode Island and of our great country of America. So I just want you to know that I'm there for you, I serve you, and I want to make your life a better place to live and hopefully enjoy economics. And the Secretary of State, we give you the opportunity to enhance businesses and also to just basically be there for every Rhode Islander to enhance their life. So I want to thank you, and I'll pass it on to the next speaker.
Thank you for those opening statements. At this time, anyone who wishes to ask the candidates a question may come up to the microphone at the front of the stage. Mr. Codalesa will be up.
How would you describe the duties of Secretary of State and what it does?
Well, there's several major topics of the Secretary of State. There's civic education that teaches students the greatness of our democracy. There's also historical archives, which is an office that can give everybody here and the general public a history of our state. We have a great history of our state going back to the Revolutionary War. And I want to enhance that, providing that opportunity for all Rhode Islanders to be able to come down to the Archives Department and review history that our parents and our forefathers experienced and participated in. There's also, very importantly, the election laws, which, as you know, everybody here, of the diversity of elections and what's going on in the country right now. We need to be united. It's okay to disagree on policy and scenarios of your political tastes and standards, but remember, we're all Rhode Islanders, we're all Americans. Don't forget that. And you can have a drink or a beer after or a sandwich and still be friends and carry on the tradition of our country. Because partisanship is very important. And over the last one is corporations, where I have a lot of experience with commercial real estate. Corporation fees, I want to lower the fees. I want to enhance the business climate in Rhode Island to make sure that everybody here in our state has the opportunity to make a living and use their expertise and intelligence to enhance their lives. Thank you.
The Secretary of State's office is usually a down-ballot race that no one pays much attention to. Of course, after 2020, people started to pay attention because secretaries of state around the country were charged with pushing back at election fraud claims. So Mr. Cortellessa spoke about some of the silos in the office. Yes, maintaining the corporate registry and records associated with business. Also maintaining public information and providing public information. All the records and documents from the General Assembly and from government in general come through and are preserved and restored by the Secretary of State's office. Regulation of lobbyists is also part of the Secretary of State's office duty. On the election side, the way we do it in Rhode Island is a little different than other states. We have two separate entities. The Secretary of State maintains the voter registration rolls and prepares the ballot and does public information about elections. However, the Board of Elections actually runs the elections. And I believe that is an important distinction because the Secretary of State is a political person. That's why we're here today, to make our pitch for your vote. But the Board of Elections maintains and runs the election day and the election process. And we need to keep the political separate from the process so that the Secretary of State doesn't put their thumb on the scale and shift, perhaps, in their favor in election.
One of the jobs of the Secretary of State is to work with local businesses. What policies will both of you have in order to help small businesses financially start and continue building their businesses in Rhode Island? And what will you do to incentivize them to stay in Rhode Island?
It's a good question. So the process now is business registration. And what we want to make sure to do is continue to improve upon the department's website so that it's very easy to do business with the department and to get your business registered and get any documentation you need in order to continue to run that business. Now, what we should be working on, and what we're starting to work on, and we see a little bit in the Commerce Department, is blockchain technology, which can serve as a connective tissue to all state departments. That's important. We need to expand that. We need to do that well. What Secretary Rhode has done well, and which I hope to expand on, is allowing workshops and providing workshops with current businesses, online workshops, in-person workshops, to help startups get going, to give them a concierge service, to show them how they can proceed through what sometimes is a difficult process. So if we do that and make life easier, quicker, we're going to enhance enhance business now. The Secretary of State's office is not a business or economic development office. It is a procedural office. So we do what we can to make sure that people have the tools to succeed.
First thing I would do, if I'm elected, is for you to open up a business in Rhode Island, it's going to cost you $400. You get nothing for it. I'm lowering that fee to $250 to help you enhance your business to get it off the ground. Also, there are programs there that go online. There's a track record of what you can do to get to that point. There's also some roadblocks also. For instance, if you own a company, if you miss your late day on a renewal, there's late fees and fines. And if you really go a little further, you have to go to the General Assembly to get your corporation back in good standing. I'm going to eliminate that for you guys. You don't need to go there. I want to set it up where you stay within the Secretary of State's office. If you miss a payment or if you're late, I'm going to reinstate your company, reinstate your business without going through all the other procedures, because every procedure costs money. In business, you need to save as much money to get that business off the ground. And in Rhode Island, I think it's 85% of companies are small business. So you are the blood and bread of our economic engine. So that's what I would do to help you get your business started off the ground.
Is there anything your office could or would do to prevent gerrymandering at a state level?
Well, the General Assembly controls, when they go into redistricting. Is that the question, basically, redistricting? And it's a political question. I would not look at the numbers as a candidate or as an elected official and think, well, you know what? If I can take a part of that city or state or community, it will enhance my bottom line on votes. That's what happens. It's not right. It gives a bad taste to government, and I would be totally against gerrymandering districts to help candidates, which unfortunately goes on to this day in Rhode Island also.
So sunlight is the greatest disinfectant, right? So the best thing that the Department of State can do in the gerrymandering area or the redistricting area is to make sure there's an abundance of information online that's accessible to every Rhode Islander, so they know what the districts look like, they know what has happened in comparison to the previous 10 years, they know what the census numbers are, they know what the voting numbers are, and people can make their own decisions as to whether or not the process became too political. So there are guidelines for redistricting to avoid gerrymandering. It does happen. It's happened across the country. It is the purview of the General Assembly to approve that. The process is independent. There's a group hired to do that, and then the General Assembly approves that process. The best thing the Department of State can do is make sure that all of that information is online, accessible, so that the public can ask questions. Why did this happen? What's the change here about? Was there a population shift that caused that change? And if that information is available, then people can push back on what could be gerrymandering.
How will you increase, or how will you make voting more accessible for Rhode Islanders?
So, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, I am the first co-sponsor in the House, and I whipped in the House the Let Rhode Island Vote Act. And the Let Rhode Island Vote Act does just that. It expands access to the ballot. So just briefly, what it does. It allows voting by mail without witness or notary signatures and without an excuse. In Rhode Island, prior to this law, prior to the pandemic, if you voted by mail, you had to have two witnesses witness your vote, not your vote, but your ballot, or a notary. And you had to provide an excuse for the reason you were voting by mail. Those have been eliminated by the Let Rhode Island Vote Act. I'm going to explain why. The second part, the excuse for voting, that was being abused anyway. People were creating issues so that they could vote by mail. But nonetheless, we should be able to vote by mail. We should be able to vote in person early. We should be able to vote on election day. This is making democracy more accessible to people. When voting laws were put into place, or voting processes were put into place, the workday was very traditional. It was 7 to 3, or 9 to 5, or 8 to 4. In a service-oriented economy, that is not the case. People don't have access to the ballot. So give them the mail ballot in any way, shape, or form. Don't put somebody into the room with them to influence their vote, because when you ask for witness signatures or a notary signature, and many notaries hired by campaigns, then you're putting somebody into the room with the voter and influencing that vote, and that's dangerous. So that's one way. The other expansion of voting is drop boxes, which are outside the town and city halls, so that people can deliver those mail ballots easily. Early voting, which is going on right now in Rhode Island, which is very easy and exactly the same as same-day voting. No lines, no fuss, no muss. You walk in there, you make your vote. Now you can wait until election day. That's an option too. But all those other things are options, and the more people we get involved in the process, the better off we are.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. When you go to the bank to cash a check, and the teller gives you your money back, do you count the money? Of course you do. Why? It's not that you don't trust that person. It's not that you don't trust the teller. It's called trust but verify. So, reflecting the election laws with those issues that were removed from from our ballot requirements, there were protections put in place. Now, they have been removed, but in my feelings is that there wasn't anything put back in to keep it where it was protected. You know, we have a Voter Rhode Island Vote Act, photo ID law, which you have to have a photo when you vote. No problem. With the mail ballot system, circumvented the system where you don't have to show a photo ID to use your mail ballot. So technically, if you have people who want to take advantage of the system, they could. And I wish everybody was 100% honorable. And we all strive for that. But being in the security business, I see a lot of things that people try to take advantage of. And for our elections, I don't think we can take a chance on that. So honestly, I think we should keep some kind of protections in there. If I'm elected, I would try to do some issues on that. We don't have the time to talk about the technical issues on that, but I just wanted you to know that my goal is to make sure our elections are integrity and honorable, and I need to provide you that confidence if I'm elected.
What kind of measures would you support to protect our elections?
Well, we just touched base on it a little bit. So I think what we do, and I talked to Mr. Mori about this, is that on the mail ballot system, so when you put your mail ballot in, it goes down to the Board of Elections, there's a big multi-million-dollar machine that you paid for. And unfortunately, the signature requirement verification on the software is not on, or not being used. They're using individuals to look at the signatures. Now, I was told that they take a half-hour class on the internet, these individuals, and you know, an FBI agent explains how a signature could be fraud or correct. I believe the software should be in place while the mail ballots go through gives us a sense of security and confidence in our election law, especially the mail ballot. So that's how I would go about it. I would have that machine turned on, and I would definitely feel more confident than having, you know, the software instead of having individuals looking at those signatures. Like when the mail ballots go through the machine, basically it's only like 3 to 4 seconds to see if they're you know, verified. So that's what I would do. Okay, thank you.
So Mr. Cortellessa and I agree on that. There should be enhanced voter signature verification, and it's happening in the country. We do have software here in Rhode Island that has not been employed yet. I would do that. All right, so that's first. But I think there's a larger issue here on the security of our elections. And that is, all over the country, you have elections officials resigning their positions, leaving their positions. It's very difficult to find people to work in early voting and on election day. I mean, the fabric of our democracy is at risk here when we are not providing for a safe place for election workers. And election workers around this country have been threatened. Their families have been threatened. There was a bomb threat at one of the places during a special election just recently. This is troubling, and this is based on so much misinformation about our election system. If you were to go into the Brennan Center for Justice website and look at elections around the world, and then look at elections in the United States, you'd be impressed to see how secure our elections are. We can always do better. We should always do better, and I agree with the signature verification technology. As it improves, we should use it. But we also need to preserve the process we have in place now and make sure people are confident in it. Remember, the confidence in our election system is not based on any actual evidence, the lack of confidence. The lack of confidence in our election system is based on misinformation. It's based on a losing presidential candidate who decided that he didn't lose with no evidence. And this is indisputable. His own Attorney General said that, the Department of Homeland Security said that, 62 lawsuits said that. The questioning of elections is based on that misinformation, and we have to push back on that.
Seeing as the Secretary of State oversees lobbying in the state, how would you regulate corporate lobbyists, especially those of big corporations like Amazon, who are now coming into the state, to ensure that they're following all the rules?
Sure, it's a good question, and people don't think about lobbying much. But because I've been in the General Assembly for 10 years, I've been lobbied quite a bit. One of the things that Secretary Gorbea made sure happened was that if a lobbyist were to enter the chamber, either the House or Senate chamber, they had to have their badge on. And their badge had to be displayed prominently so that people knew who they were and who they were lobbying for. I would not only continue that, I'd actually improve the badge itself. So it was double-sided, it was larger, people knew who was who. The other thing is we have to make sure that on the Secretary of State's website, it's very easy to find out who the lobbyist is, how much they make, and who they're employed by. Lobbying is free speech, protected by the Constitution, protected by the First Amendment. People don't like the idea of lobbying. They think lobbyists are on the scale, I'd say used car salesmen, politicians, right there, lobbyists. It makes people feel uncomfortable. But it's free speech, and I will be honest with you. I've learned a lot from lobbyists. I voted against them after learning a lot from them, and I voted for their bill after learning from them. They are the experts in their field. But we have to make sure that people know who's lobbying, who they're lobbying for, where they're getting their money from. And then voters can make an informed decision. So I think that answers the question.
Regarding lobbying. So we have a lot of politicians in the State House. They've get to meet a lot of folks, a lot of companies, corporations, and I would institute a one-year revolving door position where no politician can be a lobbyist for 1 year. And that keeps out cronyism and inside dealing. And that's definitely what I would do. But lobbying is also very important for the government to enhance the business community, big corporate developments. So there is a fine line where you just can't eliminate it also. But I want to keep out the cronyism, I want to keep out the insiders, and I don't want politicians using their position to enhance their livelihood financially on the people's dime. Thank you.
We'll now go to our closing statements, and you may start.
I just want to thank everybody here for taking the time out of your school schedule. I'm very honored to be here. This is my second time. 4 years ago, I had an opportunity to talk to the students again before. So I just want to say, I'm looking for you to support me in my endeavor to enhance your life. I'm your conduit for your enhancement of your business community, your livelihood, and any other issues down from the Secretary of State's office regarding the elections. I want to say one thing about unity. Again, we're all Rhode Islanders. You know, in politics, people take situations and they get out of control, and I don't want politics to become the Jerry Springer show, and that's not right. So, with that said, I would like to show unity. My opponent here, if I'm elected, I have no problem having him as my deputy at the Secretary of State's office, because he is a good man.
As you have seen today, Mr. Cortellessa is a gentleman, and this has been a gentleman's campaign. It has been fact-based, oriented. I will tell you this, the Deputy Secretary of State makes $45,000 more than the Secretary of State, so this gives me something to think about. It's an honor to run for public office. It's a privilege. It's been a privilege of mine to serve in the General Assembly. My parents raised me to believe in public service. My parents raised me to believe that the word politician was not a negative word. That service was something important, and that service to one's community and service to one's state is admirable. And unfortunately, over time, we have created a synonymous connection between political and negative. And I'd like to turn that around. I think we can appeal to people's better angels, as Abraham Lincoln said. I think we have an opportunity to bring the temperature down, as Mr. Cortellessa said, bring the political temperature down. I'm looking to serve the state as I've served my community and as I've served the General Assembly for these 10 years. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion with you. As I said, this is what I do for a living. I've been before high school students for 32 years, so I'm very comfortable here. And again, I think this is a fantastic forum. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the students and teachers at North Kingstown, we'd like to thank both Mr. Cortellessa and Mr. Amore for their participation and support.